Man, I had to put this thing off for an entire week, so you know this pod is gonna be fire. Hope y'all ready to go back down memory lane. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 82nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I got a quick story to tell, man, and y'all bear with me. Y'all bear with me on this one, okay? So I was supposed to do this pod last Friday, okay? And I had ran into some issues, but not the kind of issues you think. So right before I was about to jump on, and I think it was like 4 o'clock or something like that, 3:45. I don't remember what it was, but it was getting later into the evening, and I had some things planned at 5, so I was kind of getting up against it, and I needed to start immediately. And I went to jump on the pod, right? And right when I went to jump on, a damn fly flies across my face. And let me tell you right now, after mosquitoes, the insects I hate the most are flies. And honestly, I know God didn't make any mistakes. And that's my guy, man. My guy G, man, he's a real G. But I still ask him from time to time, periodically, why did you make flies again? What was the purpose behind flies? And so I frantically get up, and anybody that knows me, and I think I'm about to drop a gem on your melon right here. Anybody that knows me knows I can't stand flies, and I will go to the greatest lengths of the earth to kill them. So after I saw this fly across my face, knowing that I had all these lights on in front of me, the fly was going to return for more action, and I couldn't allow it. So I went into stealth fly killing mode, followed him into the kitchen, and this was an 8-minute escapade that I was on. I had to quietly get to him. He was in the blinds on the window. I didn't want to move too quickly or move too subtly and make him fly away and have to go catch him. So I had to tactically sneak up on him, make sure I had the right angle, and bam! Smashed his ass against the window. But it took all of 8 minutes to track his monkey ass down and get into a position where I could strike. Needless to say, I look up, and it's 4:08, and I'm like, man, I'm really, really running behind now. At this point, I can't do the podcast. So had to push the podcast aside, and I said, look, I'm going to do this one next week. But I didn't feel like changing any of the graphics. The date was the only thing I had to change, but I had the episode up there already. I had everything already set up. So I was like, you know what? Not doing any podcast this week. I'll just do this one on Friday. So that's the story of why I didn't do this last week. But that's nor here nor there. These are always my favorite podcasts when we take a trip down memory lane and I ask you if y'all remember when. And we're going to get to all of those things today because I think this is going to be a fun one. And this one is going to be one that a lot of you are probably going to be able to relate to because when we take that trip down memory lane, I'm not going to go too far back on you this time. I may drop a gem on your melon and go back a little ways. And some of you might have to go do some research on what I'm talking about. Maybe you'll have to do that when I go to remember when. But I'm going to keep it nice and simple, stupid for some of y'all today. We're going to go back to the 2014 draft. Not that long ago, but I tell you what, man. I don't know if I was more wrong about a draft and right at the same time than the 2014 NFL draft. Looking back, though, that's a hell of a draft. You know, when you kind of think about it now, there's some big whiffs. Some killer misses in that draft. But man, did some teams knock it out of the park in that draft and some players come out of that thing or what? So we'll talk about the 2014 NFL draft a little bit later on in the show. But before we get to that, you know what we got to do. You already know what we got to do. You know I got to drop this gem on your melon. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. I want to talk about some teams around the league. I really want to just take a trip around the league real quick. Kind of quickly mosey around the league and talk about some things that have transpired with some teams, because there are some teams that interest me more than others as we get closer to the 2020 NFL season. And remember, we're just 2 weeks away now. We're less than 2 weeks away. Last night marked the 2-week mark that we're away from the season starting. 2 weeks from yesterday, you're going to get Texans at Chiefs to kick off the 2020 NFL regular season. Doesn't seem like it. Without preseason football, seems a little strange to be talking about real games actually coming on when we haven't seen fake ones, but that's where we are with this thing, man. So before you know it, this season will be off and running. I want to start with the AFC East because this division is really fascinating me. And normally it doesn't, because I just say, oh, the Patriots are going to win it, and I keep pushing. But this year, it's very fascinating because we don't know what the hell's going to happen in this division. Are the Bills really going to assume the throne? Are they going to take over the mantle? Are the Patriots ready to pass off the baton? Is Cam Newton even a starter in New England? Like, you know what's crazy about this division? The Jets have turmoil like they always do. Le'Veon Bell was reportedly pulled from practice. There was a report that he was benched. How do you get benched in a scrimmage? I don't know. Don't ask me. Never heard of this before. But he's saying he had an injury. They're saying, and so he came out and they wanted to protect him. There's rumors out there that he was benched. Adam Gase is like, I don't really give a shit. How about you just release this man? We all know that Adam Gase can't stand Le'Veon Bell, wouldn't have given him the contract that he got. How about you just cut ties? And I don't know the cap ramifications for moving on from Le'Veon Bell. I surmise that they are not beneficial to the Jets, which is why they haven't made the move already. But God damn it, I'm just tired of this pissing match between these two. Either shut up and play him or move on from him, but this nonsense has to stop. So the Jets continue to have turmoil and controversy, and not to mention, look at their wide receivers that they've got Sam Darnold throwing the football to. My goodness, it is not pretty in New York for that Jets football team. But we'll see how things go for the Jets. Like I said, I'm not an Adam Gase fan. Don't think he's a leader of men. So I don't think they're going all that far with him as their head coach anyway. But I did like what Joe Douglas did in the 2020 NFL draft. We'll see if some of those players start to pan out. Maybe they might be able to turn a corner. I highly doubt that with Adam Gase as their head coach, but we'll see what happens. You look at the Miami Dolphins. They're continuing on we don't give a tour. All right, now look, if you don't want to be here, you're not going to be here, okay? If you don't give a, we don't give a. That's how the Dolphins are carrying theirs right now. So, look, Brian Flores, to his credit, he is not playing any games, okay? If he doesn't like your ass, if you smell like a rat, you're out of there. And so they just continue to turn that roster over until they get the right mix in Miami. And so they just traded away Kalen Ballage to the Jets, coincidentally enough, in the division. Adam Gase, remember, was with Kalen Ballage as a rookie in Miami, and he actually played really well under Adam Gase's best season of his career. And so I'm assuming Adam Gase feels like he can get something out of it. And I don't know if this is a direct correlation to what we just talked about with Le'Veon Bell, but we'll see. But Kalen Ballage is now a New York Jet. And they also, this was really interesting. They released, they put on waivers with an injury designation their 5th round pick, Curtis Weaver. Now, this is a guy that a lot of people weren't really fond of during the draft period, and that's why he fell down draft boards all the way to the 5th round. I had a 3rd round grade on Curtis Weaver, so I thought he would go anywhere from the 3rd, maybe 4th round. I didn't think he was going to slip to the 5th round, but he did. And a lot of people thought like the Dolphins, including myself, may have gotten a steal here. Now, there are a lot of things people didn't love about Curtis Weaver. One, he was not explosive. He's not an explosive, dynamic athlete. That was the first thing. Second thing was he had a very soft and doughy-like body. He wasn't cut. He wasn't a guy that was in tremendous shape. And I think that turned a lot of people off as well. But that's no here, no there. The guy put up big numbers in the Mountain West Conference. And so I felt like it may translate. You know, if you know how to bag quarterbacks, generally you know how to bag quarterbacks. So we're going to see if this guy panned out or not. Well, the Dolphins only needed 3 padded practices to realize that this guy isn't for us. And so he got injured during that 3rd padded practice, and they just cut him. They said, all right, They could have easily said, we're going to put this young fella on IR. We're going to guarantee his salary for the season, put him on IR, and we'll try this thing again next year. They just said, nah, we'll expose him to the waivers of the rest of the league. And if he passes, then we'll put him on IR. But if he doesn't and somebody snatches him up, which the Cleveland Browns did, then to hell with him. We don't need him. I just found that very odd and strange. But again, it didn't take Brian Flores and company long to realize this guy isn't a Miami Dolphin. And they just moved on from him. Interesting times in Miami, to say the least. I'm still really fascinated by the whole Tua Tagovailoa situation. Will he start? He's starting to rev it up. He's starting to look like the Tua of old, I'm hearing in practice. I wonder what they're going to do. I still surmise that they're going to roll with the vet to start the season off, and Tua's going to get in sooner rather than later, but I don't think he's going to be your starter week number 1. So then you get to the Patriots and all of their hoopla this year. First, foremost, all of the players that decided to opt out of the season, put them at a distinct disadvantage, you would think. Then you get the whole Cam Newton. Is he the starter? Is he not the starter? We talked about it on this podcast. Co-starter with the ex-Auburn quarterback, Jarrett Stidham. Then Stidham gets an injury, but he understands that he can't afford to miss time, because if he does, he will lose his co-starting position on the roster. So, he has been trying to battle through an injury, but all reports have pointed to Cam Newton getting starter reps, but yet not feeling like the starter in New England. I'm baffled by that entire situation. They're talking about using him in different ways, like he's some kind of college quarterback, and they're talking about potentially subbing in quarterbacks, different possessions. The Patriots, they march to the beat of their own drum. I don't know what the hell they've got up their sleeve. I know I don't like it, okay? And so we'll find out what happens with them. But they're the only team in the division with really no drama or nothing going on. Quietly, it's the Buffalo Bills. They're kind of just minding their damn business, going about it workman and yeoman-like. And all of a sudden, they're the head honchos potentially in this division. A lot of people had them favored to win the division, and they're just quietly going about business. I read the other day that they had a inter-squad scrimmage, first team against the second team, first team O against the second team defense. And the first team O went through the second team defense like a hot knife through butter. So they seem to be clicking on all cylinders out in Buffalo. Meanwhile, the rest of the division is spinning in place. So I don't know, maybe Buffalo has finally figured it out. And you know how I feel about their GM. You know how I feel about their head coach. I think they've got the right mix out there. They both just got extensions this offseason. I think what the Bills have going on is quietly something that's going to really manifest itself into a powerhouse in the AFC if it's done correctly. And I think it starts with Josh Allen at the quarterback position. If he's right and if he's good, and I'm a Josh Allen fan, the Bills could be a scary team in the AFC conference. Then you start looking at some of these other divisions. I've told you this before. I'm a big AFC West guy because of all of the speed that those teams have on their rosters now. Raiders are a faster football team now, but they're dealing with a big injury to one of their receivers in Tyrell Williams. He got injured, and he's going to try to play through it. I forgot the actual injury that he sustained, but he's going to try to play through that injury. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it or not. But he was a guy that they were really counting on because they're a young football team. When you look at their wide receiving core, if Tyrell Williams isn't in the mix, you're really relying on two rookies out there in the South Carolina rookie that they got in the third round, Brian, can't remember his last name. And he's a guy that I really like. And of course, Henry Ruggs, the third. So it's going to be interesting to see if Tyrell Williams can play through that injury or not, but they've got a ton of speed on that offense. When you talk about Darren Waller, you talk about Henry Ruggs, the wide receiver out of South Carolina. Obviously, Jacobs out of the backfield. There's a ton of speed to go around on that football team. And they added Jason Witten, coincidentally enough, which is odd, but it's also interesting in the sense that he's still got a little something left in the tank. And so we'll see what happens with that team. We know what the Denver Broncos did this offseason, adding a ton of speed. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, KJ Hamler is banged up, but to add KJ Hamler, to add Jerry Jeudy, to add Albert O, to add all of this speed to what was already there before, hand. I just think this team has a phenomenal set of young, talented pass catchers. It'll be interesting to see if Drew Lock takes that next step. I'm still a little leery about that offensive line, and remember, their right tackle, Juwan James, opted out. They already had some issues on the left side with Garrett Bowles, so I don't know if they're going to be able to protect him or not, but boy, do they have some weaponry out in Denver. And don't forget, they also signed Melvin Gordon the third. And then you know what the Chiefs are. And the Chargers decided to take the opposite track. They said, everybody's going heavy on speed on offense. We're going to go heavy on speed on defense. And so that is a fascinating dynamic there in that division. You look at the AFC South. I really don't know what the hell's going to happen in that division. I never know what's going to happen in that division. I know the Jags are going to roll with, what's the quarterback that was a rookie last year out of Washington State with the mustache? You guys know who the hell I'm talking about. They're going to roll with him at quarterback, which I actually was impressed with him. And I dismissed him when he came out in the 2019 draft. And, people were talking to me about him. I said, get out of my face. I don't want to hear about this guy. He's not going to be a real NFL quarterback, at least a starter. He might be a backup quarterback. And then I watched more of the tape, and I realized that this guy at least was going to be a quality backup. And then he gets in, and I was impressed with him as a starter last year. He did some really good things. Gardner Minshew is his name. Gardner Minshew, impressive. He's getting an opportunity in Jacksonville now. It's a one-shot deal for him. Either he balls this year, or if Jacksonville's 5-11, 4-12, and he stinks it up, they're going to draft a quarterback next year. And what it looks like a very quarterback-rich draft, they're going to draft a quarterback, and he'll be a backup at that point. So he's got one opportunity. He better not miss his shot to go, because opportunity only knocks once in a lifetime. He better go. If he doesn't, they'll be drafting a quarterback in Jacksonville potentially next season. But you look at the Titans. I don't know if they can repeat what they did last year. That was like a Cinderella story almost. It came out of nowhere with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback midway through the season. Move on from Mariota. He comes in, takes over, and they just kind of hit the ground running, never look back, and have that crazy run in the postseason where Derrick Henry literally ran over the competition. And they were up on the Chiefs, if you recall, early in that ball game, and they almost crashed the party last year and almost made it to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they can duplicate that. I really don't. They went out and signed Vic Beasley. That's kind of getting off to a funky start. He showed up late to training camp. Seems to be a little bit behind. And look, Vic Beasley wasn't a guy that honestly was that sought after in free agency. The Falcons couldn't wait to get rid of him. I really don't know what he's going to do in Tennessee. Not really looking for big things from him, honestly speaking. So I don't really know what to expect from the Tennessee Titans defensively. I just know that offensively, they're going to try to do the same thing they did last year, and just ram the football down your throat and allow Ryan Tannehill to manage the game. And if need be, and, Ryan can toss it around the field a little bit. He threw for over 300 yards a couple times last year, so he's not afraid to cut it loose if you give him opportunities. I'm fascinated by the Titans and this division. Indianapolis is another intriguing team. You look at, Phillip Rivers there in Indy. What are they going to do? Are they a quarterback away from really contending in that division and in the conference? Or are they still missing pieces on that football team? Health has always been an issue for them on the offensive side of the football. I'm hearing that offensive line with that running back, Jonathan Taylor, behind it is looking ridiculous. Tennessee Titans-like, if you will. And so I love that draft pick, by the way, of Jonathan Taylor behind that offensive line, what ultimately could be the most dominant run-blocking offensive line in the league. I know there are some teams out there that might have something to say about that, but they're dominant up front. And Jonathan Taylor is a guy tailor-made. You see what I did there? To be behind an offensive line like that, I just think the Colts are another fascinating team. Is Phillip Rivers going to manage the game, or is he going to go over there and make mistakes like he did in Los Angeles and put them in some tough spots? I think they just want to run it and have Phillip Rivers go play action fake and drive the football down the field, because they got some speedsters and some guys that can run. But again, Rivers, it's in his DNA to take risks. He's a risk taker. We'll see what happens, but the Colts are a very fascinating team as well. And then, of course, You look at the Houston Texans, the team that somehow, despite their head coach, finds a way to win the division every single year, it seems like. And this year, as long as Deshaun Watson is healthy, you'd like to think they're going to have a shot. They got to make over on offense, and not a good one. They move on from Nuke Hopkins. That's never a good thing when you take arguably a top 2 receiver in the league and move him for essentially a running back when you already had a running back. And you know how I feel about the guy they moved on from in Carlos Hyde. I'm not going to give you the promo for Carlos Hyde, even though I just want someone to love Carlos Hyde. I really do. But that's nor here nor there. They get DJ now, and we'll see if David Johnson can rekindle the magic. Remember, 2 years ago, this guy was a fantasy football darling and your number 1 overall pick in the draft. Now, he's faded to black, and no one's even talking about this guy. Can he rekindle the magic in Houston? Lord knows they need it because Deshaun Watson's going to need some help. I don't know if they have enough weaponry. I know they got Brandon Cooks now, but Brandon Cooks, I've said this before, and it seems like everywhere he goes, he's very productive. I won't take that away from him, but at the same time, I look at Brandon Cooks and I say he's one head shot away from being out for the season, and really he is 1 or 2 vicious shots to the head away from being out of the NFL with concussions. And so I just worry about him. Too many injury-prone guys. Cooks is injury-prone. There are other wide receiver who, when he's in the lineup, they're really good, but he is never in the lineup. The receiver out of Notre Dame, God damn it, I can't think of his name. It'll come to me. But they still have Kenny Stills, who is a really good wide receiver as well, but he's the only one that can seem to stay healthy. So it's interesting, but Deshaun Watson is one of those few quarterbacks in the league that can elevate the play of players around him. So they'll find a way to win 9 or 10 games this year and qualify for the playoffs more likely than not. And Bill O'Brien will be safe yet again, somehow, some way. But you go to the AFC North, and I'm probably more fascinated and intrigued by this division than most because I myself think the Bengals are going to be better than a lot of people do. And I know I may be alone in that assessment, and that's fine. I don't mind going out on a limb by myself. I do it quite often, but I think they're going to be more competitive. It's not going to just be 2 wins easily for everybody else in the division when you meet Cincinnati this year. I think Joe Burrow's going to change the culture in Cincinnati, and I think they're going to be a much better football team. Joe Mixon, I heard, was dealing with migraine headaches. That's a scary thing because you're thinking the first thing you think of when you think of headaches, does he have something going on with concussions? Don't know, but he's a centerpiece of what they do offensively, so hopefully he is right. But you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously you get Ben Roethlisberger back. That was the missing ingredient last year. I was shocked. It was a hell of a coaching job by Mike Tomlin, to be honest with you, with the way the season went. They literally should have made the postseason, but they had a meltdown towards the end. But considering what they went through all year long and the quarterbacks that they trotted out there to try to make the postseason, I thought it was a phenomenal coaching job. So you add Ben back into that mix, and you think that the Steelers have to be one of the teams you got to look out for in the AFC if he's healthy. So obviously the Steelers are in the mix. We know what the Ravens are. They're one of the best teams, and not just in the AFC, but in the NFL. And obviously the Cleveland Browns are a team that had a bunch of expectations last year. Now they're kind of flying quietly under the radar. They got a ton of injuries defensively, man. Their secondary has been decimated. I mean, the injury reaper, boy, he has been busy in Cleveland. My goodness, he's already taken rookie Grant Delpit, their 2nd round pick that they thought they stole. He's already taken his Achilles tendon already. I think Greedy Williams had a lacerated spleen or a lacerated kidney or something, a liver or something crazy like that. Or a shoulder injury. Another one of their corners, I think it was Kevin Johnson, was the one with the lacerated kidney or liver or something like that. And I'm just like, God damn, what did they do? You know what I mean? Like that secondary has been ravaged, and we haven't even played a game yet. But I think that Kevin Stefanski is going to be the perfect mix in Cleveland for Baker Mayfield, and I think that offense is really going to be potent this season. Now, what are they going to do defensively? That's another story for another day, but I think they're going to be highly competitive in that division as well. So that's the AFC. We'll come back. We'll talk about the NFC on the next episode. But I'm really fascinated by the AFC conference. And I'm usually not all that fascinated by the AFC conference. Got a couple super chats. I'll knock these out real quick. Chris Devers says, what up, man? We them boys. Hashtag Star Lounge. Hey, what's going on? CD. I saw you got your equipment, man. Waiting on you to put out that content, man. Let me know what's good, man. I'm looking for it. Also got a super chat from my man Believers Talk. What's going on, man? I see your work over there, man. You're putting in a lot of work over there, and I'm proud of you too, man. You're like one of my proteges. I'm like a proud papa who's watching his only son finally make it. Do you know how many people have approached me about starting a YouTube channel? I give them all the game that I have. I give it to them, and they do nothing with it. And you were one of the few, one of the only, I should say, that I gave the game to, and you reinstilled hope in me for people that approach me with YouTube, because I had grown sour to helping people. They would, ask me about starting a channel, and I would give them like a vague, starter kit information and something they could get if they just typed in Google, how do I start a YouTube channel? Like I would give them that kind of information because I had tried to help so many people and they did nothing with it. And you just took off running, man. And I see a lot of what you do and me, because I started out initially, and I remember when you first started, you had a road dog with you, you had a tag team partner, and then, for whatever reason, he kind of checked out, and you just had to go by yourself and go and do it. And that's the same thing that happened to me. So I see a lot of what you're doing and how I got started. So, man, big ups to my man Believers Talk over there doing his thing. If you're a Buffalo Bills fan or you're just a fan of the NFL, go check that man's channel out and give him a sub. But in any event, let's go ahead and progress into what I love to do on these Flashback Fridays, and that's take you down memory lane. Back down memory lane on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. I couldn't do the intro because I would get red flagged on YouTube, but I thought I'd just do it myself. How about that? So let's take the trip, and I got to get into my smooth jazz 105.3 voice for y'all as we take this trip down memory lane, man. 2014 NFL draft. What's crazy about this draft is I couldn't have been more wrong about some players, and I couldn't have been more right. I think this is the most divisive draft I think I've ever been a part of, because there were so many players that people were split on. Remember the Jadeveon Clowney versus Khalil Mack debate? Who should you take number one overall? The Texans ultimately took Jadeveon Clowney. But you could argue, I don't think there's really a real argument. Mack has been the more dominant player to this point. So there's that. I was a massive Blake Bortles fan. I was a massive Blake Bortles fan, man. I swear to anybody up and down that this guy was going to figure it out, man. And, man, was I wrong about Blake Bortles, man. Blake B, my goodness. Let's run this draft down, shall we? So first pick overall, Texans take Jadeveon Clowney. I just talked about that. I don't think they regret doing that, but at the same time, Khalil Mack, and you see the impact he's had during his career. Wonder what he would have done in Houston, and would he have been able to change the game for them? Think about a defense with Khalil Mack and J.J. Watt on the same defense. That's kind of hard to imagine, but they could have had that, But that's 2020 revisionist history. The Rams take Greg Robinson. Ouch. Boy, was that a swing and miss. And, that brought absolute joy to my heart, because, that was the Washington football team's second overall pick that year. If you remember, that was still a debt being paid from the RG3 trade. And so that pick should have been the Washington football team. And so, I wanted him to stink. And boy, did Greg Robinson stink. So it was great. because, Jeff Fisher was trolling us. When we played against him, he sent all the players that they got in the trade out to the coin toss. And it was just so much fun to watch every single one of those guys turn out to be bums for the Rams, and none bigger than Greg Robinson. Jags take Blake Bortles, number 3 overall. I remember this like it was yesterday, watching the draft coverage, doing it live with you guys, and Michael Mayock saying, hey, don't be surprised if Blake Bortles is the pick here, because I didn't think Blake Bortles was going this high. And he said, don't be surprised if Blake Bortles is the pick here. I was just in Jacksonville. They were talking, and I swear they really love Blake Bortles, and it ended up being Bortles. And I said, man, Florida kid staying in Florida. This is a match made in heaven. He's going to light it up in Jacksonville, and he's going to turn them around. And he had that. Hey, there's just like we say in Washington, there's always 2012 when we talk about Robert Griffin III. There's always 2017 when you talk about Blake Bortles. Say what you want. There's always 2017 in that AFC Championship game. They were 7 minutes away from the Super Bowl. Don't forget. All right. Anyhow, Buffalo Bills take Samuel Watkins in the first round, 4th overall. And he never quite panned out in Buffalo, had a great rookie season, but injuries really told the story for him in Buffalo. And it just never, for whatever reason, worked out outside of the injuries. The guy is uber talented. We saw it in the Super Bowl last year with the Chiefs. We know what this guy is capable of, but I don't think we've ever fully seen Samuel Watkins at his best. I don't think we've ever seen Clemson Samuel Watkins, which is what got him drafted 4th overall by the Buffalo Bills. Oakland Raiders take Khalil Mack, 5th overall. Best move they could have made there, but the problem is they didn't retain his services. How he's still not a Raider behooves me. I don't know how John Gruden managed to come in and the first thing he does is F this thing up 6 ways to Sunday. I don't know how that got done, but you lose a guy like that, it's tough to replace him. I get it, ton of money to invest in a position that's not the quarterback, but when you got a player the caliber of a Khalil Mack, you do everything in your power to keep that guy on your roster. But he is now a Chicago Bear, but he was a Raider and he did some he was the first player in NFL history to make it as a first-team All-Pro at multiple positions. Let that sink in and marinate for a second. 6th overall, and I remember when I assessed this draft, I was head over heels with the tackle position. I said, this is a tackle deep draft, and all of these guys are going to be studs. Let's look and see how it turned out. So Jake Matthews was the 2nd tackle taken. Obviously, Greg Robinson was the 1st, and that didn't work. Jake Matthews has been really solid in Atlanta, but I don't think he's ever been as dominant as we thought he was going to be coming out of Texas A&M. He's got the lineage, but he's been good. He's been good, not great. 7th, Mike Evans, Mikey. That was also one of my assertions that I was right about. This is going to be a killer wide receiver draft. It turned out to be one of the more memorable wide receiver draft classes in recent memory, especially the first round, because if I'm not mistaken, every single one of these first round wide receivers went over 1,000 yards in their rookie season. I'm not sure if Samuel Watkins did, but I think everyone was close. If everyone didn't go over it, and I know Mikey did, and he's been a stud, and he's now a top 7 wide receiver in this league, is Mike Evans. Boy, was I wrong about the 8th pick in the draft. I wanted him to be so good. Cleveland Browns select Justin Gilbert. Now, I didn't think he was going to be good. I just wanted him to be good. I kept talking about this dude and just waiting for him to be good. Wow, was he funky or what? He might have been the biggest bust of this draft. I don't know if this guy played in 5 NFL games total. Like, he was so bad, he couldn't get on the field in Cleveland. There was injuries, and then there was just bad play, and they didn't like him, and I don't know if he liked football. I don't know what the hell was his problem, but it just never worked in Cleveland for Justin Gilbert. My goodness, what a bust he was. 9th overall, Anthony Barr, UCLA linebacker to the Minnesota Vikings. Tremendous pickup by the Vikings. And remember, he almost left in free agency 2 years ago and jettisoned them for the Jets. You see what I did there? But he ultimately had a change of heart, went back to Minnesota, and continues to be one of their better players on their defensive unit. The Detroit Lions take Eazy-E Eric Ebron in the 10th slot of the first round. And, funny thing here was I thought it was a little too early for Eazy. I thought he was going to be a really good football player. I didn't think he was top 10 worthy. But, when you look at the Lions draft history over the last, let's call it 15 years, let's go 20 years. I don't think there's been a team in the league outside of Cleveland. I think Cleveland's number 1 and then Detroit's number 2. I don't think there have been many teams that have wasted more top 10 picks than the Detroit Lions, especially on the skill positions, whether you're talking wide receivers or tight ends. I don't know about you, but TJ Hawkinson wasn't as impressive as I thought he was going to be right out of the gate. I'm not calling him a bust, or I don't think he's going to stink or anything like that, but I don't think they got what they thought they were getting in year one. I surely thought they were going to get more out of him in year one, but we'll see. But I thought it was a little too rich for my blood at 10, and he turned out to be really solid, but never great in Detroit. And by the time he got to the end of that rookie contract, they were ready for him to go. Number 11, Taylor Lewan to the Tennessee Titans. He's been good. He's a head case, man. He's been good, but not great. Not as good as I thought he was going to be. Similar to Jake Matthews, really solid player. Earned a second contract with the team that drafted him, but he's a head case and hasn't been always the best player for the Tennessee Titans. At 12, one of the steals of the first round, even though he's a head case as well, Odell Beckham. Shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. This is a guy that I thought it was going to be good. I didn't think he was going to be this good. I'm not going to lie to you. When you watched him at LSU, you saw potential, but the problem was the quarterbacking at LSU has been so bad for so long that you kind of fall prey to thinking their receivers aren't as good. And you saw what happened when they finally got a quarterback at LSU, all the talent they had at the receiver position and how they blew up. I mean, that's been the problem in LSU. It hasn't been the talent at receiver. They've had a lot of receivers drafted over the years. I used to always say buyer beware when you go to the LSU store. I've done this before on this podcast, so I'm not going to do it again, but there's the Craig Buster Davis in San Diego. There was the Michael Clayton in Tampa Bay. All these guys that would come out as first-round wide receivers and stink it up out of LSU. And I would say, hey, buyer beware. Don't go shopping at that LSU store for wide receivers. But these guys have changed the narrative, and it started with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, and they've really put out some good players ever since. And so he exceeded my expectations. But again, he's a head case, and that's why he's in Cleveland and still not a New York Giant. But he went over 1,000 yards in his rookie season. Remember, he missed the first 2-3 games of the season with an injury and still ended up with 1,100 yards receiving and 7 or 8 touchdowns. I mean, he tore it up. It might have been 13 touchdowns. He tore it up his rookie season. It was ridiculous. The crown jewel of this draft, however, was at 13. St. Louis Rams select never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, Aaron Donald, defensive tackle out of Pitt. I don't think anybody saw what was coming from this guy as he turned into the best defensive player in the league and arguably one of the best defensive interior linemen I've ever seen in my life. And there have been some really good ones I've seen. John Randall comes to mind. A lot of guys that played on the inside that were really good football players. But I don't think I've ever seen dominance from inside like I've seen with Aaron Donald. This guy is he's next level. And I don't think the Rams knew what they were getting at 13, but my goodness, did they get the steal of the first round in the 2014 NFL Draft. Kyle Fuller, Bears select him out of Varech at 14. Solid player. I think he was a guy that was iffy early on, got better as his career progressed, and I think he's been really solid in Chicago. He's still a Bear right now. One of the heartbreaking stories of the 2014 NFL Draft was the 15th pick overall. Steelers take linebacker Ryan Shazier, who I just absolutely loved. To me, he was the guy that was changing the game at the linebacker position because he made it in vogue to go and get you a smallish but stupid athletic and fast linebacker that was physically gifted. He made it in vogue to do that because before him, there was this taboo and stigma that, hey, look, if you're willing to trade speed for size, go ahead, but you're going to pay for it. And he was the first guy that made it okay to trade off speed for size, or size for speed, but not lose the physicality at the position. And I felt like he was single-handedly changing the game at the linebacker position as an inside backer. Man, this guy was ferocious, but his career got cut short due to a hit. And, it's a shame what happened to him because that guy was trending towards being the best linebacker in the league. Dallas Cowboys take Zack Martin, 16th overall, out of Notre Dame. I remember when they first made this pick. I'm a Fighting Irish fan. I knew Zack Martin was good. I didn't think he was 16th overall good. But all Zack Martin has done is come in the league and become one of the best guards in football. So the Cowboys absolutely got this right. And remember, there was a stigma once upon a time that you didn't take a guard this early, but the Cowboys have been one of those teams that have kind of bucked the trend. You're not supposed to take a first-round center. Well, they did that with Travis Frederick. That worked out really well for them until he got the syndrome and had to retire. Zack Martin, you don't take a guard early in the first round. Well, the Cowboys kind of bucked that trend again here, and it worked out really well for them. Ravens take C.J. Mosley, linebacker, out of Alabama. I remember being so wrong about C.J. Mosley. I wasn't a big C.J. Mosley fan. I said, look, I don't see what all the fuss is about C.J. Mosley. Go back and watch my assessment of him. I thought that he was overrated. And I was wrong. He was a really good football player for the Baltimore Ravens. He hasn't really been good since, however. Since he's gone to New York, injuries have really beset him, and now he's opting out of this season. I don't think the Jets are really happy with what they've gotten out of C.J. Mosley to this point, but we'll see what happens. But he's been really good early in his career. This was another swing and miss. I wasn't the biggest Kelvin Pryor fan. Jets make him the 18th selection out of Louisville. He was a physical safety, but not much else. Didn't have great ball skills. Wasn't the best athlete in the world. He's just super physical. And I think the Jets found that out the hard way. And I don't even know if this guy, made it 3 years in the league. Because normally when you're a first-round pick, you get passed around the league. If the team that drafted you gives up on you, you get 2 or 3 other opportunities elsewhere. I don't even recall Kelvin Pryor getting maybe one more opportunity somewhere else, like a Cleveland or something like that. I don't remember where else he went, but I don't remember him getting many cups of teas in the league, man. It was in and out for him quick. 19th overall, Dolphins select Juwan James, tackle, out of Tennessee. I remember this being a surprise when the Dolphins made this pick, man. I wasn't expecting it. Was shocked by it. Didn't even know who the hell Juwan James was, to be honest with you. Caught me off guard, but he turned out to be a very serviceable right tackle and got a massive deal for the Denver Broncos. And so he's been really solid throughout his NFL career to this point. Saints take Brandon Cooks, 20th overall, out of Oregon State. I remember his combine and how he tore the combine to shreds, and that's how he really catapulted himself into the first round with a dominant combine performance. And it was crazy, though. I could never understand why no one wanted to hold on to Brandon Cooks. He lit it up in New Orleans. I remember his rookie season, over 1,000 yards. I told you this was a really prolific group of wide receivers in the first round of this draft. He went over 1,000 yards in his rookie season. He went over 1,000 yards again. And he's got Drew Brees, so you knew he was going to tear it up, and he did. But then they traded him. Right before his contract was to expire, they traded him to the New England Patriots. And he lit it up with Tom Brady in his first year there. And in the middle of his second season, he gets injured, and they end up moving him to the Rams. He tears it up there for the Rams. They ultimately make the Super Bowl in his first year there, and he seemed to be the missing piece. And then all of a sudden, they trade him too. So I'm like, what in the hell is going on with Brandon Cooks? Like, why doesn't anybody love Brandon Cooks? He's now a Houston Texan, but wherever he goes, he puts up numbers. I talked about him not being able to stay healthy, but the guy is a high-volume machine. He catches a lot of balls for a lot of yards, and he does a lot of good things when he is healthy. 21st overall, Green Bay Packers select HaHa Clinton Dix out of Alabama. Never was a huge HaHa Clinton Dix fan. I haven't been blown away by his career to this point. Green Bay gave up on him, traded him to the Redskins or the Washington football team. He was horrible for the Washington football team. They actually wanted him back. He decided, you guys stink. I don't want to come back. He ended up taking a one-year deal to play for the Bears. Kind of resurrected his career in Chicago. Got a deal to go play with the Dallas Cowboys. I believe it's another one-year deal. So he's essentially being passed around. No one wants to commit long-term to him for good reason. Hasn't shown the ability to be a consistent defender, but When he's on, he's a solid football player. 22 overall, the most controversial pick in the first round of this draft. Cleveland Browns select quarterback Johnny Money Manziel. My God, remember that? Money time? You remember that? Man, was this guy a head case 1, a walking off the field issue 2, and a guy that just simply didn't get it 3. He had talent though. There's no denying that. But talent without effort and work ethic, you might as well be a bum at that point. And so this was one of the crazier picks because so much hoopla followed this guy. So much fanfare and expectations followed him. And remember, the Browns were still searching for a franchise quarterback. So a lot rested on his shoulders, and he wasn't the guy that you wanted to put that kind of pressure on. And he didn't deal with it very well. We all remember the video or the photo of him in the bathroom with the Coke on the counter with the rolled up bill, and you couldn't see everything, but you could kind of surmise what was going on there. And all the episodes, he would get injured, he wouldn't show up for treatment. It was rough. Needless to say, he ended up out of the league, and he tried to get back in the league. He did the whole, what league was it that he tried to get in? It wasn't the AAC, it was the other league. What was it? It was a football league that came and went, and they had Manziel. I think he might have actually played over in Canada or something. And he was funky over there too. At the end of the day, it didn't work, but there are a lot of people swearing by Johnny Manziel when he came out of Texas A&M. I swear, man. Anyhow, Kansas City Chiefs take D Ford, 23rd overall, and that ended up being a really good pick for them. It started off a little slow, but eventually D Ford became a really good pass rusher for them. Not enough to the point where they felt like they needed to hold on to D Ford, but he became a really good football player, and a quality pass rusher, in this league. Really, the offsides in the playoff game versus the Patriots was his undoing in Kansas City. That was the beginning of the end of him in Kansas City. But as I mentioned, good football player, but he's kind of fallen out of favor in San Francisco already. It'll be interesting. At one point I heard he was on the trading block in San Francisco, so we'll see what happens with him. As we move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, Darqueze Dennard is the pick out of Michigan State. Never was a Darqueze Dennard fan. Never thought that he was worthy of a first-round pick. And I haven't seen anything that suggests that I was wrong about that. I honestly haven't really heard much from him in Cincinnati. And it's easy for someone to go out into Cincinnati and fade to black and kind of fade to oblivion out there because it's Cincinnati and they're not winning anymore. But I was never a Darqueze Dennard fan, and I didn't think he was worthy of a first round pick. But this next guy I thought was, and boy was I wrong about him. And I don't know if I was truly wrong about his skill set and his talents. I couldn't have predicted he wouldn't be able to stay healthy. And that's Jason Varech, drafted by the San Diego Chargers, 25th overall out of TCU. My God, Jason Varech, man. I had a man crush on his game. I just thought this guy was going to be a stud at the next level. And so many people believed in Jason Varech that he kept getting opportunities despite getting hurt every single year. As a matter of fact, he's still on the 49ers roster despite tearing his ACL last year. So this is a guy that cannot stay healthy to save his life. But he keeps getting chances because the talent is so immense. But at some point, he's not going to be the same player. And we got to be in year 6 of Jason Barrett. I don't think this guy has played 20 games in his NFL career yet. I could be wrong about that. But it feels like he hasn't even played 20 games in 6 seasons, which is asinine. But he keeps getting opportunities. This next guy didn't get a bunch of opportunities, and boy, did he stink. Philadelphia Eagles select linebacker Marcus Smith out of Louisville. And these Louisville players were overdrafted in this draft. We talked about Calvin Pryor already. Now you're talking about Marcus Smith. And I tried to get Eagles fans to understand that maybe there was a little value in this pick. Maybe he's not as bad. Eagles fans weren't trying to hear it. They knew this guy was a bum and a bust right out of the gate. And he was. And there was no cleaning this up. And I again, one of these guys that I don't know if he even made it 3 years in the league. I think he might have been out of Philadelphia after his rookie season, maybe 2 years in Philly, max. Like, they realized quickly we made a mistake, and they moved on. And I don't think he got many other opportunities in the league. He may have gotten one more, but not many more. I think he ended up in Washington at one point, either a year or two ago, but never did anything there either. So that was a waste of a first-round pick there. 27th overall, Arizona Cardinals select safety Dion Buchanan. He ended up being a linebacker, another one of those guys that kind of ushered in that wave of making it okay to have an undersized linebacker inside. He was more of a thump guy than he was a speed guy. He could run, but he was more of a physical presence as a 215, 220, 225 pound. But he was more of a 215, 220 guy as a linebacker. But Shazier was a little bit bigger, but much faster, much more tremendous athlete with Shazier. But both of those guys kind of ushered in that new wave of, hey, you can get away with an undersized backer if you got the right dude with the right mentality that's not afraid to mix it up with a guy that might outweigh him by 100 pounds. You can do it. And Dion Buchanan was one of those guys. And he actually had some really good years in Arizona, went to Tampa Bay, and that's when the career started to kind of tail off a bit. Carolina Panthers, 28th overall, select Kelvin Benjamin out of Florida State. I thought he was going to be a beast. He came into the league. He looked like he was going to be the beast that I thought he was going to be. Over 1,000 yards. Coincidentally enough, the only 1,000-yard season he would have in his career. I think he had like 1,005 yards that year. He looked the part. Big target for Cam Newton to get the football to. It just seemed like a match made in heaven. And then he got hungry. And he started eating. And he didn't stop eating. And he didn't train. And all of a sudden, he wasn't 235-pound Kelvin Benjamin that was a beast at Florida State and a beast in his rookie season. He was 245-pound Kelvin Benjamin that was starting to look a little lethargic and a little tired after running a couple of routes. And next thing you know, he was in Buffalo and he couldn't get off the line of scrimmage because he was a little tired. And he got bigger. And he joined the Eddie Lacy Club, man. And that's unfortunate because there was early promise. But, man, what a little bit of extra food and a little bit extra weight can do to you. New England Patriots take Dominique Easley, tackle out of Florida, 29th overall. I've always said that the Patriots are terrible at drafting in the first round. They don't do a good job. Where they do their damage, second round and later. They seem to whiff on the back end of the first round quite often. But they're okay with doing that because they just know how to identify talent on other teams. So that's how they find a Kyle Van Noy as a diamond in the rough. Oh, Detroit doesn't know how to use him. We'll snatch him up, figure it out, and get him to play good ball for us. They seem to do that well. They seem to find the Daron Harmons and the Jason McCourtys in the mid rounds. They seem to find the players that are ultimately going to help them down the road in the third, fourth, fifth round, second round. They find good football players second round and later. They just don't seem to do it well in the first round. And this was another waste of a pick here. San Francisco 49ers, 30th overall, select Jimmy Ward out of Northern Iowa. It's Northern Illinois, excuse me. I was lukewarm on Jimmy Ward. I thought he was more of a corner, safety, wasn't really sure, kind of a tweener. They found good use for him. He ended up being a really good player for them and a glue guy in that secondary once he was healthy. So a really solid pick back into the first round for the San Francisco 49ers. Then you get to the 31st pick. Denver Broncos select cornerback Bradley Roby out of the Ohio State University. He was a key cog in that defense, winning the Super Bowl in his rookie season. He stepped in right away, gave them quality snaps in that 2015 season as they were able to become a dominant defense. And he was a huge part of the reason why. You had Keith Talib on one side and Bradley Roby on the other. And they played some really good defense in what became the no-fly zone, along with Chris Harris as well in that secondary. And they became a really formidable group back there. Also with the safety that they got from the Cleveland Browns and Ward. So they had a hell of a secondary. Of course, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, and all those guys up front. that was a hell of a defense, and Bradley Roby really came in and did his job. Minnesota Vikings select Teddy Bridgewater, 32nd overall out of Louisville. So 3 first-rounders for the Cardinals in the first round of the 2014 NFL Draft, and the only one that managed to really make anything of his career was the final one selected in Teddy Bridgewater. I remember the Vikings trading back up into the first round to get Teddy Bridgewater and thinking what a smart move that was. You get that extra year on his rookie deal, and this is a guy that a lot of people went sour on. Remember, he had a horrendous combine and pro day, and remember he went back to the glove for his pro day and did a lot better at the pro day, but he was bad at the combine, and so a lot of people soured on him. And I thought he was just starting to blossom in Minnesota when he had the horrific injury, and I think he's gonna get another opportunity now in Carolina to be the guy, and let's see what he does with this second act that he's getting and a new lease on life. All right, let's kind of just scroll through quickly the rest of this draft. Cowboys get DeMarcus Lawrence, 34th overall in the second round. That turned out to be a tremendous steal for them. Browns get Joel Bitonio, 35th, the very next pick. He turned out to be a really good football player for them. And the Raiders get Derek Carr, 36th overall. Not often that you see a quarterback not taken in the first round actually turn out to be a quality NFL starter, but that's what Derek Carr has become, and they ended up getting him in the second round. As we roll through some of these other names, Rashid Hegman, Falcons select. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I thought he was going to be a stud for the Bucs. That didn't turn out very well. Marquise Lee for the Jaguars. Detroit Lions take Kyle Van Noy. I just talked about how he didn't work as a second-round pick. They were disappointed. He goes to New England, tears it up. As we continue on, Jordan Matthews, I thought would be a really good receiver for the Eagles and actually started out well in his career, but he's being passed around now like bread at the dinner table now. I mean, he just ended up on the 49ers roster like 9 times, the Eagles roster 17 times. He's been all over the place, man. As we continue on down this list, Trent Murphy was the Washington Redskins second-round pick. Jason Morrow, I thought he was going to be a good tight end in this league. This is a guy that I was super wrong about. Man, did I love me some Jeremiah Atauchu or what. Man, I thought he was going to be so good out of Georgia Tech. I thought he was going to end up being one of the biggest steals of this draft. And injuries and for whatever other reasons, he just hasn't amounted to much of anything in this draft. Packers get truly one of the big steals of this draft. Devontae Adams in the second round, 53rd overall, has become one of the best receivers in all of football. That was a big pickup for them there. Allen Robinson went 61st overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, so that was a hell of a pickup there for the Jaguars. Jarvis Landry, 63rd overall, back into the second round out of LSU as well, another good pick. The Washington Redskins take Morgan Moses at the top of the third round, top portion of the third round out of Virginia. That turned out to be a really good pick for them. Christian Kirksey was picked by the Browns in the third round. That turned out to be a really good pick there. Remember Chris Borland? That's a name in this draft. Hell of an early start to his career. Decided to retire early because of concussions. And not that he had a bunch of them. He just said, I don't want to have concussions. Now that I know what they do to you, I'm going to go ahead and retire early. And he was one of the first guys to actually do that. It was a big story at the time. As you continue through this draft, let's look at some more notable names. Panthers select Trey Turner at the back end of the third round. He turned out to be a steal for them there, an all-pro guard at the back end of the third round. I'd say that was a big pickup for them there. I remember Drake Archer, the pick of the Steelers, running back out of Kent State. I thought he was going to be really good. Man, was I wrong about him. Falcons take Devontae Freeman. Devontae Swang! Take him in the fourth round. He turned out to be a really good back again. Injuries, concussions, things of that nature have really kind of slowed what was a really promising start to his NFL career. As we continue to run through some of these names, Martavius Bryant looked like he was going to be a stud in this league for the Steelers. Burst into the league as a big-time deep threat for the Steelers. in a part of their Killer Bees unit of Ben, Brown, Bell, and Bryant. And then all of a sudden the off the field issues just come in waves and he can't seem to get his NFL career back on track. He's actually trying to be reinstated by the league, and Roger Goodell will have none of it at this point. But Arizona Cardinals take Logan Thomas here in the 5th round of this draft out of Virginia Tech. And, you know, the crazy part about that is he's now a tight end for the Washington football team. And he was a tight end for the Bills. He was a tight end for the Lions. And that was an interesting pick there. As you continue on through this draft, let's see if there are any more notable names. Kevin Pierre-Louis, for some of you Washington football fans that may be out there, he was in this draft as well as a 5th round pick by the Seattle Seahawks. Or 4th round pick, excuse me, of the Seattle Seahawks. As we continue on, any Washington football fans out there, Ryan Grant in the 5th round of this draft. How about the Jacksonville Jaguars getting Kelvin Smith in the 5th round of this draft? You know, and yeah, he kind of retired this year. He called it taking a year off, whatever. But this was another guy. We talked about all of these smaller linebackers. Throw him in the mix. 2014, I guess we can go ahead and say go ahead and earmark this as the year that the league saw the shift in the mindset of smaller linebackers playing inside, because Kelvin Smith is another guy that at 210, 215 pounds played the linebacker position and played it really well for Jacksonville to go along with Dion Buchanan and, of course, Ryan Shazier. I remember Devin Street, Pittsburgh Steelers, Pitt wide receiver that was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in the 5th round. I thought Devin Street was a steal for them at the time. He turned out to be a bust. And not really a bust. He was a 5th round pick, but he wasn't as good as I thought he was going to be. See if there are any more names. A.J. McCarron was selected in the 5th round by the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Mettenberg. I remember thinking, man, this guy's got some talent. You know, Tennessee Titans take him. He may turn out to be the quarterback of the future in Tennessee. Man, was I wrong about him as well. He turned out to be extremely funky. As we continue on down this list, the Chiefs got a steal here in the 6th round with Laurent Duvernay Tardif, one of my favorite names in the league. They get him out of McGill College in the 6th round, and he's been one of the linchpins of their offensive line, And so that was a good get late in the draft. Quincy Enunwa was a really good pick for the Jets, even though he has not been able to stay healthy recently. Remember Taj Boyd from Clemson? You know, their star quarterback that kind of helped resurrect that program. Yeah, he got drafted by the Jets in the 6th round. That didn't work out all that well for them, but interesting. Let's see. I remember I made a Ted Bolster reference for all of you Washington football team fans out there. That was the pick in the 7th round by the Washington Redskins at the time. And I think that's it. I think that's all you're going to get. Oh, no, the Bears selected Charles Leno out of Boise State as a 7th round pick. And he's been a very good left tackle for the Chicago Bears. And so rare that you find that kind of player in the 7th round. But they found one. They unearthed a gem there in Charles Leno. And how about this name? I'm taking you back a little bit. How about this name, guys? St. Louis Rams select 249th overall defensive end out of Missouri, Michael Sam. Remember Michael Sam in the media storm he created when he kissed his boyfriend on draft night and got drafted by the Rams. And oh man, the jokes were just flying in, boy. Yikes. I remember that like it was yesterday. He ended up in Dallas eventually. Never did anything for them either. Whew, that was a scene. Anyway, that's the 2014 draft, man. Took a nice little trip down memory lane. What a draft that was. The wide receiver position was elite early on. Some of those guys kind of fell off the table, like a Kelvin Benjamin. Even Odell hasn't been as dominant, but he still got it in him. Samuel Watkins, got a Super Bowl ring though, but dominant wide receivers, dominant, good tackles, not as dominant as we thought. Looking at that draft, just kind of recapping those tackles real quick in the first round. You had Greg Robinson, obviously not a stud in that first round. You had Jake Matthews. He's been really good. Tyler Lewan has been good, but not great. Thought that he was going to be better than that. I could have sworn there were more tackles taken in that group than just those three. I felt like there were more guys that went. Zack Martin went, but he's not a tackle. Jawan James went. He was solid. Maybe I thought it was more tackles in that draft. Anyway, the quarterback position in that draft, really interesting. Obviously, you get Blake Bortles, you get Johnny Manziel, but Teddy Bridgewater is the guy that ultimately is going to probably have the better career of all of those guys, and he was taken last in the first round of that draft. So 2014 draft, interesting looking back, and we'll do that again next month on the Louie T Network podcast. But as always, when we take that stroll down memory lane, we also got to make sure we take that trip back to remember when.
Y'all remember when, 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 y'all remember when.
Yes. Y'all remember when? Man, oh man. This is always my favorite part of the show. Y'all remember when baggy clothes were cool? Wearing baggy clothes were cool, man. If you see some of the pictures of me in high school, you would ask me, what was I smoking? And can I have some? First of all, I'm a string bean. I'm a skinny mini. I'm a really small, petite kind of guy. And I'm not skin and bones, but I'm not a thick guy. Never have really been, except for there was that one summer when I was 12 years old, but that's another story for another day. But I never was any bigger than a large in terms of the clothes that I should have been wearing. A lot of you not. In the days of Dipset and do-rags and fitted caps, your boy Louie T was out here walking around with 3X. I kid you not. There is one, I will never forget this outfit. I bought a velour, a Rockaware velour. Remember velour? Oh man, that's another remember when. Velour outfits, but I had a velour Rockaware outfit. I had a velour Rockaware outfit. It was all red. Red's my favorite color, as you can tell. And it was a 3X. And I remember having to safety pin the bottom of my pants all the way a third up just to get it to not be dragging on the floor because they were so big and falling off of me. And that was cool back in the day. Believe it or not. The jacket would swallow me. It looked like 2 people could fit in my jacket, maybe 3. And I would wear it and I wore it with pride. With my fitted cap to the side, you couldn't tell me nothing. Baggy clothes was in, man. You might not know anything about that because now you can't get me to wear something that doesn't fit on me tight, like a glove, all right? But in those days, man, it had to be 2X or bigger for me to even look at it. I remember having a Sean John shirt that I literally had that came down to my knees. What the hell was wrong with me? Yikes! Anyway, remember when running backs wore linebacker shoulder pads? Do y'all remember when? It was crazy. I was looking at an old Redskin game the other day, and I was watching Ernest Biner running the rock. And I said, God damn, look at Ernest Biner's shoulder pads. And then I looked at some other guys from that time frame, and Christian Okoye, and I looked at some of these other backs that were running the rock at that time, and I said, man, their shoulder pads are Legion of Doom-like. I mean, what the hell? Like, how did you tackle these guys? Their shoulder pads were enormous. I mean, Go and look at Emmitt Smith's shoulder pads back in like 92. It looks like he's got about 6 dinner trays or 6 plates, 6 glass plates stacked up on his shoulders. Go and try to, when they used to lower their shoulder, they really lowered their shoulders back in the day, okay? Like, you weren't just bringing down these running backs with arm tackles, man. These guys were literally carrying the state of Texas on their shoulders, man. It was not a game back in the day. But they had to protect themselves because that's back in the era where running backs were getting it 30 plus times a game. But it's just hard to look at these running backs and think to myself, that was actually allowed for you to wear pads that thick, that big? And how are you even fast with those pads? Amazing. Anyhow, remember when the skating rink was the spot to hang out? I don't know about you. I don't know where you're from, okay? But from where I'm from, coming from where I'm from, the skating ring, that was the hangout, man. You know, all through middle school, even a little touch of high school, the skating ring, College Park skating ring, man. What you know about that? 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 Yeah, I know all about that. And you wouldn't even go to the skating ring to really skate. You was going to be cool, you know, peep out the honeys. You know what I'm saying? That's what we called them back in the day, slimmies, honeys. You was just trying to cop a little feel, get you a number or two. You might skate a lap or two, but get your nice little share of house music, maybe a little go-go. But you weren't there for the skating, man. You was there to try to get your Mack on, man, the skating ring. And that skating ring was raggedy as hell, and you never knew. Maybe somebody might actually get in a fight or two. You might have to leave early, but the skating ring was the place to be on a Saturday evening, man. You know, Friday after school, Saturday night, skating ring was lit. I don't know about you. I don't even know if the skating ring is cool anymore. But I remember when. Do you? Anyway, remember when you had those fake cigarettes and you were smoking them? From the fake candy cigarettes? Remember when? You would go to the ice cream truck. I don't even know if you know about the ice cream truck. That's another remember when for another day. I would go to the ice cream truck and get the fake candy cigarettes. All right. I don't know about you. My pack of choice was the King pack. All right. Said King in big letters on it. I popped that baby open. Take a couple puffs and some white smoke would come out of them things. You can't tell me you didn't used to smoke the fake candy cigarettes, man. Come on, stop it. And you know, I'm gonna tell you something. As an adult, I can't stand cigarettes. Cigarette smoke drives me nuts. I can't stand it. All right, but back in those days, we thought it was cool. You know, get you a little cigarette fake like you know. We were so whack, man. I got so many more remember wins from the ice cream truck by themselves. I could just do a whole remember win on the ice cream truck. But again, that's another day and that's another story, okay? Anyway, remember when players in the NFL used to wear neck rolls? Oh my God. It's funny because I told you I was watching some old game footage a couple weeks ago. And I'm watching these linebackers, and we all know about the Brian Bosworths and the Brian Cox of the world. Brian Cox used to have the skinny long one. Remember that? But you had the linebackers that had the big neck rolls. I'm talking about the thick joints. Like, it separated their neck from the back of their jersey. It was so thick. Like, where are you going with that, man? And that used to be cool. Like they used to wear that as a badge of honor. You know how like when we played back in the day, you wanted a Falk Dick face mask. That was the cool face mask. You wanted a Falk Dick, right? Back in the day, they wanted a neck roll. If you had a neck roll, you was dope. Oh, had a little skinny neck roll coming out the back of your joint. What in the hell is that? Those shits were hideous. but they wore them shits hard, okay? Hard. Some of your favorite players were wearing neck rolls. You know, offensive linemen, linebackers, neck rolls du jour, okay? All right. Damn neck rolls. Hey, look, can't knock the hustle, man. Can't knock the hustle. Remember when Etonic tennis shoes were cool? I took some of y'all back, way back in the time right there. Some of y'all don't even know what I'm talking about. Etonics, what are those? Etonics, man. Etonics. I'm going back so far that Etonics were actually the signature shoe of Akeem Olajuwon. They were called the Dream. Y'all don't even know nothing about that. And I could do the whole shoe thing, and I'll do another shoe another time down the road, because what do y'all know about British Knights? We're going to do that another time, though. I'm not going to do that here with y'all today. We're going to stick to Etonics, because there was one pair and one type of Etonic that was the one that we saw the most growing up. Etonics Trans Ams. I don't know if you remember them. I'm not talking about, Pontiac Trans Am. I'm talking about the Etonics Trans Am. And it was just a one color shoe essentially with Etonics in white on the shoe. And I'm gonna go ahead and apologize to my man Cliff right now for killing you right now. Hey, shout out to Cliff if you watching this, man. My bad. I'm sorry, I gotta do this to your Etonics though, bruh. But my man Cliff, back in the day, had a pair of orange Trans Am Etonics. And this is the reason I remember Etonics so well. These were the most punished Etonics I had ever seen in my life. So they were bright orange. By the time Cliff got done with them, they were a shade of green. They were hanging on by a thread, and they were leaning sideways, begging for help. Please help me. Help me. Those Etonics were so hideous, but people used to rock Etonics, man. Okay? And I mean, we could do this with the Sauconys. I could do this with you all day. But like I said, that's another discussion for another day. But Etonics, man. Remember when? Hey, they were cool, man. People used to rock them. I wasn't an Etonics guy. I wasn't. But some people were. Remember when slouch socks were the shit? Come on, man. Stop. If you don't know anything about slouch socks, then I can't help you. But I remember in high school where slouch socks, they was the shit. Especially when it was nice outside, it got warm. You could wear your little shorts, put on your slouch socks, pair of DCs or any kind of high top shoe, and then you would fix your slouch socks so they would just slouch just right over your kicks. Man, I'm telling you, slouch socks were the shit until they fell asleep. And when your slouch socks got sleepy, that's when you had a problem. And there were too many times when dudes didn't know when to say when with their slouch socks. Because look, everybody knew there was an unwritten rule. You got to wash your slouch socks twice. After that second wash, they were going to sleep. They get sleepy and they're going to start. Now all of a sudden, they're slooping. All right. They're drooping and now they sleep. All right. And there's no waking up a slouch. Once the elastic on those wear off, there's no bringing them back to life. You can't wake up sleepy slouch socks. All right. So slouch socks were dope. And I remember we thought we were so cool with slouch socks that we would get different colors. We would have black and white and red. And so our school colors were white and red with a splash of black, but it was really white and red. So we would get a pair of white slouch socks. We'd get a pair of black, or we would get a white and a red, and then you would stagger them on each other. Hey, it's funny because my significant other, she said, I didn't know anything about slouch socks. She was from Denver. She's like, I didn't know anything about slouch socks until I came here. And I was thinking, how whack are these dudes for wearing these slouch socks, man? You couldn't tell us shit about our goddamn slouch socks, man. I swear, they were the shit back in the day. Anyway, I digress. I remember when. Do you? So, that's gonna do it for the 82nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. As always, I have a blast with these throwback episodes. Flashback Friday. We do this every third Friday of the month. We were supposed to do it last week. Obviously, I told you why I didn't do it last week. So look for these every third Friday of the month. We're going to do a Flashback Friday episode here on the Louie T Network podcast. I have a lot of fun with these because I like going down memory lane. What can I say? Back down memory lane. All right. Let me take a trip down memory lane. Ooh, coming out of Queensbridge, which I know about that. Like I said, let me get out of here. I've been here too long. I thank you guys for joining me. As always, you guys make sure that you sub up to the channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss a thing here on the Louie T Network podcast. If you're getting this on one of the podcast platforms, whether it's Google Podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's TuneIn, it's Stitcher, wherever you're getting this, hey, make sure you sub up there. Make sure you leave me a comment. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a brother a comment. 5 stars. Hook a brother up, man. You know what I'm saying? What I got to do to get that love? You know what I'm saying? Help me out. So I really appreciate y'all, though, man. As always, you guys stay safe. Take care. And we will reconvene at a later date in time. You enjoy your weekend. You know I will. And we'll reconvene on Monday. You guys, take care. Have a good one. Louie T.